Welcome to the Ketones and Coffee Podcast with Lawrence Manaig, where we explore the ketogenic lifestyle and how it can improve your physical and mental health. Each week, we bring you valuable insights and advice from experts to help you on your journey to a healthier lifestyle. This episode is brought to you by BasicKetogenicLifestyle.com, where Lawrence coaches individuals with depression to reverse their symptoms and achieve a healthier, happier life using an evidence-based approach. So sit back, relax, and join us as we dive deep into the world of ketones and coffee. Subscribe to the Ketones and Coffee Podcast today and never miss an episode.
I'm so excited for this. We have a very special guest on our podcast today. Dr. Sara Pugh is an accomplished anti-aging specialist and a researcher with a deep-rooted passion for understanding the intricacies of the human body and mind. Dr. Sara's journey began as a dedicated research scientist, earning her degree in biochemistry and genetics from the University of Leeds in the UK. Dr. Sara then ventured into therapeutic modalities as she became an expert in hypnosis, mastering both stage hypnosis and therapeutic techniques. Dr. Sara also extensively explored various dietary approaches, earning qualification in medical ketogenic therapy and biochemical detoxification. Dr. Sara's transformative journey also led her to explore the realm of quantum biology, reshaping her understanding of human health, nature, and spirituality. Dr. Sara Pugh, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Lawrence. I'm really excited to be here.
First of all, did I say that right? Your last
yes,
name?
That was much better intro than I could do. That was superb. I should hire you just for that. So yes, that was brilliant.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's an absolute pleasure to have Dr. Sara here, the busy superhuman herself, joining us today, guys. I'm all about being a busy human, but becoming a busy superhuman, now that's something I want to try, Dr. Sara. Now, you might be wondering what being superhuman is, being superhuman entails. Well, we're about to dive into that and discover the origins and meaning behind this intriguing concept. So, Dr. Sara, it's fantastic to have you here, and I'm sure our listeners are curious to know how you came to be known as the busy superhuman, what it represents. Could you share with us the story behind that name and what it all means to you?
I think nowadays a lot of people are genuinely really busy. And as we know, we can get really worn out and stressed if we're busy, but we want to also be superhuman and busy. So I think it just came by accident. And I don't like the name anymore, but I think it's something that resonates nowadays with a lot of people, especially busy mums and dads and stuff like that. And also busy grands and grandpas, because people want to carry on being vital and having energy all the way up, into their 70s and 80s. So I think there's busy superhumans of all ages now.
Yes. And, that word superhuman, that's something that, require a lot of hard work, right? And that's what we think that it requires. But there are some techniques that we could use today that can actually get us closer to that and, achieving optimal health. And I've had the pleasure of following your work through YouTube recently, your videos, your podcast interviews, and writings. One thing that has always intrigued me is your deep curiosity that drives you constantly to evolve because you're always learning and exploring new modalities to help a lot of people whom I interview on the show. Most of their drive comes from a deep rooted emotion that fuels their passion. So I'd love to know, where does this insatiable curiosity comes from? What fuels your drive to continuously push the boundaries?
I think a lot of it comes from, I don't believe in a lot of these myths about, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, and our brain, at the age of 25, it's fully formed and life ends at 40. So I think what it is, it's partly to always set myself a goal, whether it's doing a back handspring in my 40s or to start a new aspect of my business. But then a lot of it comes down to wanting to help other people as well. And sometimes it's my rabbit hole. Like I went down a hormone rabbit hole just recently, and I've been hours and hours in it about these sex hormones. But then I find out that other people really need this help as well. So I think it's partly me always wanting to see, well, what's humanly possible at different ages. But then I come across people who, I think what it is, I often think if I knew what I knew now 10 years ago, there's all these people I could have helped, but I didn't know. So that's what I think really drives me to continuously test things or find out more, because I always think no matter what, there's always more, or there's a variation for a particular person. Because I think some people get put off things thinking, oh, this isn't for me. But then there's always a version, even a keto diet. If somebody can't do a full keto diet, there's always a low carb. So again, it's not just finding ways for myself to improve, but making sure that I've got different aspects of it so I can help other people who are not me or don't have my finances or don't have the same health as I do. So I think that's partly what drives me. But sometimes I just don't know. I think I just love learning things. And there's a great joy in understanding biology and spirituality and biochemistry. And you can technically enlighten yourself through knowledge. There are obviously lots of other ways to enlighten yourself, but definitely knowledge is something. The more you learn, the more you can learn, and the more you know, the more you realize you don't know as well.
I love that, because not everybody has that mindset mentality of always more. People have a limited idea of life that limits their capabilities. And do you always have that, or did you have to develop that all through your experiences?
I think I used to have mindset blocks, but I think for people, you've got to set yourself something that you know you're going to be able to achieve. And then you gradually set yourself a better and better target. But it's sort of with the body, it can unlock different things. So say if somebody had pain, because I used to have back pain, so that limited me physically. So when I got rid of the back pain, it opened up a whole massive door in the movement space. And then for other people who have, say, got brain fog or something, and they discover the ketogenic diet or something similar, that unlocks their brain. And then all of a sudden they're able to learn more and they can absorb more information. So I think that's something for people to understand. You don't know what you don't know. And there are all these sort of doors, whether it's a spirituality door, a biology or nutrition door, or a movement door that you can open, and new possibilities come out. So I think for the growth mindset, I do agree some people are more ambitious than others, but naturally as humans, our consciousness does want to always get bigger. So I think, again, it's something I always love to meet or speak to people who feel like they think that some people are just born ambitious or talented, whereas they could do it themselves if somebody else guided them, or they just, again, I know it sounds very cheesy, about believing in themselves.
No, it doesn't actually. It's something that you need to advance yourself. But I'm curious, practitioners like yourself, and we don't see a lot of like you out there that's open to more possibilities and opening alternative ways of achieving optimal health. What do you think is different? What do you think is the difference between you and other practitioners that doesn't explore or are stuck in their training?
I think I'm quite lucky that I've got a broad base. So with my own business, I'll just break it down. It's sort of, I have 6 pillars, and there's biology, chemistry, physics, quantum, movement, and neurology. So the biology side would be nutrition and supplements like vitamins and minerals. Then chemistry would be things like detox supplements, nootropics, those kind of that area of science. Then physics is all about movement and massage, and it could be just face exercises that somebody wants to do, or using myofascial release or anything sensory. Then I've got the quantum, which is to do with light, water, and magnetism. And neurology would be brain function and nervous system training. And then the spirituality would be the hypnosis side, whether it's self-hypnosis for the other person, or actually hypnotizing them or teaching them different mindsets. And because I've got these 6 different pillars to work with, I can have a really good overview of the person, because my intake form obviously covers the 6 pillars, and I can see, oh, that person's brilliant here, but they haven't done anything ever with quantum biology or light or magnetism. They're really good at movement, that they are really into brain training. So I can sort of see what their deficits are, and we all like to do things we're good at and avoid things we don't like or not good at. So it's easier for me to see where I can, help somebody improve in maybe something they'd never even considered, because most people have gone down the nutrition or the supplements route, but then there are other angles that I can offer, especially the quantum biology, and then I suppose the functional neurology as well. That's not so common. There's lots of people who've explored the movement pillar, and again, spirituality is getting really popular, but a lot of people read about spirituality, but they don't actually do it as well. So I think sometimes it's about checking, are people doing things, and if they're not, understanding what's the barrier.
Mhm. Has there anything that you haven't explored yet? There's so many things that relates to health, and I'm slowly learning about quantum physics, and quantum biology, and how it affects our overall health. And this is really new to a lot of people, and this is essentially, you're an anti-aging expert, and this is essentially the founding of youth, understanding hacking your brain, your body, and your biochemistry. Read that from your bio, by the way.
Oh yes.
If you're, somebody's curious about understanding how our bodies work, and you don't want to miss this, we're about to break it down on what these mean. So you've been practicing for an impressive 25 years and continually adding these modalities like you mentioned earlier. And what's even remarkable is your dedication to sharing this invaluable information freely online, right? And it's truly amazing. You're on YouTube, you're even on TikTok. This just continues to drive you to just helping people, which is truly amazing. So, Dr. Sarah, you've initially began your journey by helping people improve, their movement. You talked about pain, enhance their posture, functional abilities. It was during this time that you also trained functional neurology. For our listeners who may not be familiar in this field, could you share with us a glimpse of what functional neurology entails and how it has contributed to your practice?
Okay, functional neurology is not neuroscience. It's basically different exercises for different parts of your nervous system, such as balance, which starts to degrade after the age of 40, and also our eyes or vision exercises, because obviously our ears are one of our GPSs or our balance system. So if there's something wrong with your balance system, anybody that's had vertigo or anything like that will know how horrific it is. But your balance system or vestibular system also controls muscles in your spine and in your legs. So it does have an influence on how you move. And they're not complicated, the exercises, but the theory is. And then vision exercises, people think it's just seeing, as in reading some letters on a board, but vision exercises are sort of depth of vision. How quickly can you move your eyes from one target to the other? Because obviously our ancestors needed to be able to look around and be able to spot things really quickly. And this is really important in sports as well, because if you can see it, you can catch it first. And then also to do with functional neurology, I mentioned it earlier, it's about sort of sensory as well, because if you can't feel it, you can't move it. And there's something called sensory motor amnesia, where some people have had an operation or had an injury and their brain has basically forgotten about that part of the body. So it's either weak or they just keep re-injuring it. So functional neurology is sort of about working with different parts of the brain and different parts of the nervous system that we don't talk as much about, like the vestibular system is one of my favorite things. And then also, obviously, the eyes are bits of our brain poking out into the world. And some people would say the windows to the soul. And eyes can get imbalanced as well. And if your eyes are a bit out of line, it's going to throw your spine and your posture out of line a bit. So again, functional neurology does cover more, because we've got, I could talk about the jaw and the cranial nerves and things like that, because people have heard of the vagus nerve, and that's cranial nerve. cranial nerve 10, and then there are a whole load of other cranial nerves as well. That there's 12 of them altogether, and all 12 of them are really important. And it does annoy me a bit that people just focus on the vagus nerve, even though I think it's massively important. There are another 11 wonderful nerves around your head and neck that open up sort of great healing for you, because basically the closer to something is to your brain, the more of an effect it has. So tongue exercises can have a big effect, smelling exercises. Then anybody who's had any problems with their jaw will know how terrible it is, and jaw problems can lead to neck problems, to shoulder problems. So again, functional neurology is sort of another level of movement that, say, with athletes, my colleague, he works in professional sports, and for professional athletes, if they can get 2 or 1% better, that's the difference between coming
Yes.
first or last. So there's a huge amount of scope for using functional neurology to make athletes superhuman. But then I've found anything I take from the sports world and bring it into the rehab world, that functional neurology can massively help somebody who's had a stroke, and people can have those sort of quite young as well, or somebody who's had a severe head injury. So again, functional neurology is for everybody, not just athletes or people with, say, something like Parkinson's.
Mm. What's the most common issue do you help people with using functional neurology?
I'd probably say it'd be people who say they've tried everything and they still keep getting niggles, or tinnitus is another one that's getting more common, people complaining about that. But then I did go through a phase where I just did a lot of working with people with Parkinson's, because again, that's on the rise as well. And they respond really well to functional neurology. And also people who've sort of got a mysterious pain, or a reoccurring pain or problem where they've been to the physio, they've had scans, and that's when it's usually coming from their eyes or their inner ear, because it's just, I always say the problems either start at the head and work their way down, or start at the feet and work their way up. So again, sometimes it's a foot problem, but more often than not, it's a head and brain, an eye problem somewhere.
Hmm. Awesome. Thank you for that answer. And we're going to move on to another modality here. You mentioned that there were still people that you couldn't effectively help, which prompted you to exploring other modalities, like we said earlier, which we'll get to now. I'm curious about hypnosis. And I'll be honest, I really don't have any experience with it. And quite frankly, I am a skeptic. But I'm open to learning its benefits and how it works. So, what did you discover through hypnosis that complemented your practice, and how do they intertwine with your practice today?
Okay, just like you, I thought it was a load of rubbish and people on stages were pretending. But then when I actually went into the training, because the reason I started doing it was I would be doing a one-to-one with somebody, and all of a sudden they'd tell me something really personal, like really personal. I didn't know what to do, and I thought, oh, I better learn some sort of therapy. And I was interested in stage hypnosis, as in to prove it didn't exist. So I trained in both. And the way it helped with my practices, first of all, I use hypnosis a lot for addictions or sort of mindset changes, and even for movement. Some people can't be bothered to do their homework, or they won't come to the class, or can't get out of bed. So again, you can use hypnosis in that way for changing bad habits. And then on a deeper level, because it's massively evolved now, because I think I've done hypnosis now for 10 years, that you end up sort of discovering not just silly things like stage hypnosis, because that's very, very useful for convincing your client or people that this is real. And if you can make somebody cluck like a chicken, they're going to then totally trust that you can help them give up smoking or binge eating or whatever the next thing you want them to do. So it's got that aspect. But also, I think there's something deeper to hypnosis that we don't understand yet, because you can get really deep with it. And we won't go into this today, but people are often interested in past life regressions, especially nowadays. And I just find it's a route into a different kind of client, because you're asking, who do I see? With hypnosis, a lot of my clients are men who've been to prison or are going, and they have often addictions, usually. And it's interesting that different parts of my business attract different people. So I've found the great joy in helping them. And they're the kind of men that really would think it's nonsense or woo-woo. So what I'm offering must be doing something, because then they recommend their friends. And it's, again, being able to tap into the mind of somebody like that who you could think could be very obstructive and actually potentially quite dangerous. I just feel that hypnosis is definitely something that's a bit misunderstood, and it does depend on the therapist. And I don't for 1 minute pretend I can hypnotize everybody, but some people who've had a hypnotist that was maybe at the beginning of their journey might want to try again with somebody who's deeper into their journey. So I would just say, to sum up, hypnosis is really good for mindset change, because again, your podcast is focused around the ketogenic diet, and some people would love to do that, but they just can't seem to start or do it.
Yeah, and you talk about addiction, and there's a lot of that in carbs and sugar. But I want to talk to you about addiction and how effective is it at hypnosis? I mean,
It's one of those things. I think with cigarettes, hypnosis is 60% success rate, and then doing it by yourself, even with chewing gum, because people just get addicted to the nicotine chewing gum or vaping, is 30%. And then if I want to do something to do with food addiction or food, I've found that hypnosis isn't enough, that they have to make a functional change in their way of eating, and they need to do quantum biology as well, because food addiction or food is the most difficult one, I think.
are
And
you
then
are you saying it's stronger than other addiction?
yeah, yeah, definitely. Because with, say, something like a class A drug, that's easier, I would say, than alcohol, because alcohol, people often, I've found whatever you get addicted to, say, the first addictions that you have are the most difficult ones to get rid of, and often food addiction starts when people are children. Well, it usually pretty much
Right.
always does, and then as you get older, it's often nicotine or cigarettes that come next, and then probably alcohol, and then probably drugs after that. So I have just found you have to go in reverse, because lots of people have got more than one addiction. So I would say hypnosis is extremely helpful. Like anything, it's not a panacea. And I would definitely say, for anything to do with food, you need other approaches as well, because it's so deeply tied into the emotions. But then food is we're hormone driven as well. So that's again where the quantum biology comes in. And then just habit and things like the ketogenic diet, where you get out of the habit of having things that were addictive to you.
So it's fascinating to contemplate how many of us may have grown unknowingly addicted to certain foods, right?
Mm.
Personally, I didn't label myself as an addict until I went on a ketogenic diet, which brought about its own set of challenges. So, how can individuals recognize if they are dealing with addiction?
Do you mean food, or do you mean
Food,
alcohol, or food?
food in general, just carbs and sugar addiction.
Oh, I think that's when people get hangry. They have quite an anxiety about, oh, will I have food on me? Will there be food where I'm going? And then if they don't have the said food, they're going to start to crave it insatiably within a couple of hours sometimes. And I think, again, thinking about it all the time, that would be a big telltale sign for carbs. Also, another one is using the carbs to calm down or to relax. That's again the other issue with food and food addiction. Sometimes it's more about people are trying to fill a loneliness hole in them with the carbs, rather than sort of finding the root of that problem.
So, is it possible that many of us has grown up with subtle addiction without
Oh,
even realizing
definitely.
it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it depends on, I mean, as children, some people eat more candy and stuff than others. And sometimes it goes the other way. A lot of the clients I've worked with who are older ladies, because they weren't allowed sweets when they were a kid, or there was a limited sort of supply of treats, they've become obsessed with it. So as an adult, they went through a phase of gorging, because as a child, they were never allowed to have it. So whenever they see chocolate or cake or cookies, they want it so badly, because they weren't allowed it as a child. So it goes both ways. But yes, definitely, because the leptin receptor, if children are allowed to become overweight under the age of 6, it can mess up their leptin reception for a very long time. Even we don't know whether it's permanent. And again, sometimes just by accident, parents feed their children too much fruit or too much potatoes and stuff like that. So again, it can be by accident, and then again, there are children who are allowed just to eat whatever they want. So yes, definitely, it can be there, and you don't realize. And where I live is very multicultural, and we've got lots of Indian and Pakistani people. And obviously bread and naan breads and pita breads are very important as a family meal. So people could grow up by accident having a carb dependence just because of the pita breads and the naans and the rice. So sometimes it could be cultural as well, because it just depends on the traditional sort of foods that are brought up. And Indian cultures in particular are extremely food focused. It's sort of an important part of their culture.
You mentioned something interesting there, is that when you said when a child is not given sweets when they were younger, they might develop an addiction when they grow up.
Yeah, it's also the same with alcohol. Like my mum and dad let us have alcohol when we were 12 and 11, just
Yeah.
because as soon as you make something forbidden, teenagers go off and rebel. And it's the same with sweets. Lots and lots of my older clients who are women, there just wasn't sweets around, and they very occasionally were allowed chocolate, and they loved it so much that as soon as they were free when they were about 20, they just couldn't, they just went crazy and just bought all this chocolate. Because there is a part of our psyche that when we become an adult, we kind of crave the thing we weren't allowed to have as a child. And it could be wealth, it could be love, but unfortunately for some people it's chocolate and sugar. And also, again, some people alcohol. If they were brought up in a very strict family and they weren't allowed alcohol, as soon as they go to college they just go berserk because it was forbidden. And we have this kind of perverse nature in some ways.
You opened the door. I want to ask you, because this is a huge topic, and I have a 3-year-old, and we are a keto family, and we don't bring in sweets around the house, but we do have lower sugar sweets. What would you say that would help that situation? And now you said when their parents are strict, when they get out of the house, it's a mess, right? How do we fix that?
That's a really good question, because I remember when I did my medical ketogenic diet training, I was saying to my trainer Beth, well, the kids just want to be like all the other kids. These are kids with epilepsy who do a ketogenic diet. And she went, oh, but they can be, because there's all of the keto cakes and the keto baking book and the keto treats. So I don't know the answer, because I would say that with a keto treat, they're not as addictive and appetizing as, say, the real thing, because they're generally not as colorful. I mean, when you have a keto treat for your 3-year-old, is it something like if you describe it a bit more, because it might just be, some people make fat bombs and they sweeten it with erythritol or something like that, and they're not particularly addictive. And it's not like real candy and biscuits, which have been designed by food companies to get children addicted. Whereas the keto treats, especially the ones you make yourself, just don't have the same bliss point as the treats made by the food industry. Because what in particular is your 3-year-old having?
Well, she would have the no sugar treats, sweetened by erythritol most of the time, chocolates without sugar, cookies that are made from almond flour and sweeteners. She would have that, but we occasionally give her treats, the real ones, but we don't really allow her to have a lot. So I'm
I think
curious, how do we
that
fix that?
sounds like a really good balance, though, because,
Mhm.
like I said, with the keto treats, they're just not quite the same as the real thing. And if she gets a sort of a real treat now and again, she doesn't feel deprived. Because I think, when she goes to school and stuff, I think, when some people go to school and in their lunchbox it's very small and there's not very much, and all the other children have the treats, that's again when the child can feel deprived. Whereas if she's having a reasonable amount of, I mean, the keto baking, that's something you do as a family, I'd imagine. And then, if she has a real treat now and again, she's probably too young to understand. But I think the thing that you're getting to is not to make a big thing about it, because a lot of eating disorders transfer down from parents to children. Whereas if you're just cool about the food, and she doesn't realize something is naughty or this is very special, and I think it dissociates sort of the emotions from it. And again, if you and your partner are kind of really comfortable with your relationship with food, then she will just grow up copying what you do.
Okay. That makes sense. So now we're talking about biology and food. Now let's dive into the fascinating realm of nutrition and its role in our journey towards becoming superhumans here, so to speak. Dr. Sarah, you have developed your own approach to eating, and you call it the circadian ketogenic way of eating. But before we delve into that, I'm curious to know what initially sparked your interest in the ketogenic diet. Unlike Pilates, hypnosis therapies, food is a sensitive and highly debated topic when it comes to defining healthy eating. As someone deeply immersed in the research of advancing performance and optimizing health, how do you believe we can achieve optimal health through our dietary choices?
Okay, so first of all, with you, the first question was I actually discovered the ketogenic diet when I was about 20. So that's sort of 25 years ago for mental health reasons. And I didn't really understand. And people do it for weight loss as well. And it goes through phases of being popular, the Atkins diet. And I was aware of it then. And then during that time, I did it most of the time, but then I explored things like other things like veganism and fasting. I think I went through a lot. I also did the pro metabolic, the reshaped, which we won't go into because it sort of will open another rabbit hole. But I think when it comes to nutrition, what's important is where you live as well, because I live in the UK, so it's quite cold and it's not very sunny. So I wouldn't be eating or I shouldn't be eating lots of tropical fruit here because it just wouldn't grow naturally. Whereas somebody who lives on the equator, even if they wanted to, they would probably want to do something more low carb during the winter, which is naturally how animals would live, whereas they could get away with more fruit when it's very sunny and hot. Whereas even on the 21st of June in the UK, it wouldn't be a good idea for me to eat loads and loads and loads of sugar from fruit or whatever, because it just wouldn't be available here naturally. So that's very briefly about the circadian ketogenic diet, because what that's about is that it would be say we'll use the UK as an example, that it would almost be doing a carnivore diet in the winter because there's hardly anything growing in this country. And then as the weather gets better, to start to eat the food that's sort of being produced locally and seasonally. So I think now at the moment you can get spring onions and things. So it's sort of, yet in the UK, we would never have pineapples or bananas or really sweet fruit. So that's how I would tailor a ketogenic diet in this country, because there would be more carbs for certain people in the summer, because that would be natural. But then they would go back into a more strict ketogenic diet in the winter, whereas somebody in a different latitude may want to
Mm.
live a more low carb way of eating. But again, you're asking about how does nutrition impact us. I think it's really important, but people can get really fixated on it and miss other important aspects of their life, like their light environment, because obviously when it comes to nutrition, we want to get a broad spectrum of different nutrients at the right time. And then the same with light. We don't want just blue light that's artificial, because that's going to really mess up hormones. And also blue light raises blood sugar. So for anybody that's interested in
Mm.
keto, that's a big enough thing to really make people's ears prick up, because I know people who've had real battles with keto and insulin resistance, and it was their light environment that was the problem as well, not just their way of eating. And again, with the light, again, obviously light is how it drives our metabolism, and it tells the body sort of what time of year it is, whether we should be mating or whether we should be sleeping or resting. So in a way, we should sort of tailor our ways of eating to what we would be doing naturally. Because say the winter's a time of scarcity, and that's a time when people would say fast more to lose body fat, whereas we tend to try and do it the opposite. People always want to start getting bikini bodies now, but when
Mm.
it's sunnier, whereas naturally the mating season would be, say, come up in the late summer. That's when people would be gaining weight, ready for the winter. So sometimes it's a good idea to understand or think about what would our ancestors do and what do other mammals do at different times of the year.
You talk
And
about
you're right, yeah, it's a
Mhm.
very big rabbit hole, but yes.
You talk about being, you know, originating from the UK. Does it is it important to know where your origins are? For me, I am from the Pacific, but I live in
Yes.
Canada now.
Yes, it's called a mitochondrial haplogroup.
Okay.
And like the L, it would be people who are equatorial. So if you found out your mitochondrial haplogroup is an L, you're an equatorial person. So you would technically deal better with carbohydrates than me, because I'm a T, and that's almost a Viking. So I'm very happy in the cold, and I like it, and I'm not very tolerant to carbs. And then there's a whole spectrum of different mitochondrial haplogroups in between, and there's a few different illnesses and conditions and traits that are linked with these different haplogroups. And if people want to find out, you just would look in your 23andMe test results or a similar DNA test, and it's sort of hidden away, and you wouldn't know to look unless somebody told you.
How much does that impact all of this? That circadian
Oh,
rhythm.
massively, because the mitochondria, fundamentally, it's all about the if you've got really good mitochondria that can basically give you a really high redox potential, so you're basically like a battery that's really charged up all the time, you're going to be superhuman. So knowing your different haplotype does make a difference, because people, for example, who are an L haplotype could really struggle on a zero carb way of eating, because I won't go into the complicated biophysics, but there are some people that just don't do well on a very extreme low carb all the time. Whereas somebody else, like who had, say, a T haplotype, really should be careful with their carbs. They're not going to be able to get away with sort of big, massive carb days. Yes, they're going to can have a little bit now and again for hormonal reasons, but they have to be careful. And yeah, as the mitochondria sort of decide whether we have inflammation or not, how much energy we have, they make structured water for us. Feeding them the right fuel at the right time does matter.
Where do people get this information? Do they just Google this online, or is there any? Did you put out information about this
Oh,
on?
what, the haplotypes? Yes. Oh no, people have known about this for ages. It's just not talked about that much because I just haven't got round to it. I mean, I should make a video on it, because it is really interesting. And once people know whether they're an M or an L or a T
Yeah.
or whatever, it does help them sort of tailor their way of eating. But also, as I mentioned, hot and cold. Somebody like me who's who's a T, really does well with cold therapy. But you could be something like an L, and you'd have to sort of introduce cold therapy more slowly, because if you just jumped into a freezing bath full of cold ice and you were an L, you'd have the stress response would be massive. Whereas we don't know how what your mitochondrial haplotype is, and you'd have to grade it in slowly. And that was just an example for cold. And then when it comes to food, it would be looking into, you'd have to know somebody's haplotype, and you'd have to look at what they were eating and seeing, are they functioning optimally, or do they still have brain fog a bit, or sometimes they can't sleep, or they still have a rash. So again, it's always looking, are there any symptoms? Because if somebody's really happy and energetic and a superhuman already, obviously what they're doing is right.
That will be really interesting if you can have that up. I'll link your
Yeah.
YouTube down below so you guys can check that out. There you go, guys. It's Busy Superhuman on YouTube. That's going to be an interesting topic to learn about. I had the
Yes,
pleasure
because,
of, yeah, go
sorry.
ahead. No, go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say that what you brought up is, again, was really important about being from the Pacific and then you've moved to Canada, because Canada's obviously cold. So
Yeah.
it can be like really, yes, it's got, whereas your genetics are probably would prefer something more equatorial. And it's all about food as well, because say with your ancestors, because again, this is really important about what our ancestors did, and stuff to do with, I won't go into it in detail, to do with the morphic fields and how habits get transferred. It's non-genetic transfer. That, would you eat Pacific food in Canada, or do you eat Canadian food? And it's like a question back to you again. Do you eat what your ancestors would have eaten, or do you just eat what the Canadians eat?
Right now I used to eat how we eat, but I've
Yeah.
transitioned into more meat based, more
Right.
carnivore based.
Okay. That's really
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. Yeah, so you guys can check that out. I would love to hear more about that. I think
Mm.
that's gonna be very helpful for a lot of people, just knowing that information. Also, I had a pleasure of hosting Dr. Kelly Ritter on the show. We talked about this earlier, where she eloquently emphasized the significance of quantum biology for optimal health. And you've talked about this a little bit earlier. Dr. Sarah, I'm curious to know how did you come across this information and became immersed in this field? And then what drew you to explore this field? Could you share that journey?
Yes, that it was actually not a client's I couldn't fix this time. It was me that had a problem. And it was like this bizarre mental health situation. And once I discovered how important light was and that light influences when I make neurotransmitters, because if you don't get enough light in the morning, you're not going to make enough dopamine and serotonin and melatonin, and that's going to massively affect your mood. But also, if your melatonin and cortisol levels are off, and as you know, cortisol sort of is a stress hormone, but it also excites people in a bad way if it's there all the time. I discovered that my light environment, even my light bulbs, were contributing to the problem. And it's extremely easy to change all the light bulbs in the house. And it was also very easy to just start being religious about getting sunlight in the morning. I mean, sometimes I can't see the sun rise because it's too early, but I'll always, no matter what, the first thing I'll do is say good morning to the sun before my phone or anything like that. And then that obviously that's the light aspect. I mean, I do my best to control blue light in the evening, like with blue blockers, and I don't go on my phone in the bed, stuff like that. So that led into obviously water and magnetism, and water, as I touched on before, our mitochondria make water for us, a special kind of exclusion zone water, and it sort of acts like a battery and a lubricant inside us. And the interesting thing about the ketogenic diet is the mitochondria are going to make more easy or exclusion zone water on a ketogenic diet than a carbohydrate based diet. So that's one benefit of the ketogenic diet. And with water, this is the water that we make in the mitochondria ourselves, and it coats, say, our blood vessels and our blood cells, so we can have improved blood flow, because we want it to be very slippery in the blood cells and in the blood vessels, because how good an organ is depends on how good its blood supply. And again, if you want to be superhuman, you need a good blood supply to your liver, your brain, and stuff like that. So we need plenty of this exclusion zone water. But also red light expands this exclusion zone. And some people may have seen red light panels, but then the sun, half of the sun's light is red light. So again, getting more red light from the sun or red light panels, obviously the sun's much better, is going to increase your exclusion zone. And again, this exclusion zone water is like a battery when it's working properly enough. So again, we can get additional energy from water, because people seem to think we can only get energy from food. And because, just to break it down, the energy we get from food is just electrons, but we can get electrons from this structured water and from the sun. So it's an addition, there are two additional sorts of energy into the body. And basically, life comes down to the more energy you've got, the more you can do. And we need energy to heal. We need energy to be able to calm ourselves down. We need energy to repair in the body. So again, that's why quantum biology is so fascinating to me, because it ticks so many boxes of things that I want, but also that clients want.
For normal people, you mentioned a couple of things here. For lay people, light bulbs. What type of light bulbs are we talking about?
Oh, I used to have LEDs,
Uh,
and then I changed. No, I didn't. No, actually, no, I didn't have very many LEDs. I never put them in. I have had just an ordinary fluorescent blue light bulb, and I changed it to a. I'm looking around because sometimes I have a light bulb as an example here to show people. Oh yes, I do. Then I changed them to these because this is an Edison bulb, and it's obviously produces light, but it's more orange, and it doesn't have such a high flicker rate, because
okay.
even if people think, oh, that's silly, you can trigger an epileptic fit in somebody with the wrong kind of light. And then some mental health situations like bipolar disorder sort of have relationships to light, and the wrong kind of light is if it's got a high flicker rate and it's got lots of blue in it, you're sitting there and it's annoying and inflaming you and raising your blood sugar. And to me, just for simple people, not simple, or for lay people who've never heard this before, what I always say to people is you can't heal in the environment that made you sick. So if you are sort of
Right.
new to this, a very easy thing to do would be to just, and you love being inside, then make your inside of your house better, make the light quality better.
Mm-hmm.
And changing the light bulbs would be something people could do, and opening the windows more. Because like I said, the light that comes out of the sun is what we need
Mm-hmm.
to function. And if we've shut it away by shutting the windows all the time, well, we're blocking our connection with nature. And I do appreciate some people aren't outdoors people, but they can step by step sort of make their home have a better light environment. Again, with nutrition, people sometimes gradually transition into a better way of eating, and it's the same with quantum biology.
Really?
That you can. I'm a very much pull the plaster off all in one go person, but some of my clients are not like that, and you have to think of simple things that somebody who's not very well could do, whereas somebody who's not very well, someone else can do the light bulbs for them. They don't have to go and change their way of eating or go and exercise or something like that. So that would be the reasoning behind the light bulbs. And also they're sometimes just too bright, and in the evening you want to have more sort of orange or red lights, because that's what the sun would be doing, and it helps tell your brain it's time to go to sleep. And it also makes sure that melatonin, the sleep hormone, but the melatonin does a lot more, like we'll just say healing and detox. There's plenty of that for people, so when they go to bed, they go to sleep and stay asleep, and they have a good night's sleep, and they are able to do all of their healing and regenerating, which we do in our sleep.
Wow. Sometimes, so you're saying sometimes it's simple as getting some sunlight out and then changing your light bulbs and making sure that you're not on your phone before you go to bed, or not even bringing your phone in the bedroom.
Yes, yeah, definitely. And also, I definitely wouldn't, sleeping with electronic devices in your bedroom is terrible, because you want to make your bedroom sacred. Because for some people who are really not okay with this, they think it's silly, or they don't want to believe in technology and non-native EMFs. I'd say, okay, well, fine, have the rest of your house however you want. But if you just make your bedroom special and dark and cold, and don't have any technology and no televisions and computers and stuff in there, and just make it a special place, people are usually all right with that. If you try and tell them, oh, you can't have Wi-Fi, or you mustn't use your phone, then they don't like it. So I think it's about
Yeah.
giving people a suggestion that is going to be helpful, and then when they get a result, they think, oh, that was really good, I actually slept much better and I feel better. So I think it's like everything, even the ketogenic diet, it's all about people want to feel something in their body. They need to feel different, or sleep better, or not feel so much brain fog. So that's, again, it's the same approach with everything. You have to explain to people in a simple way why this might help them, and they've got to have the problem in the first place to be interested in what you're saying. So if somebody does have a problem with their sleep, the best thing they can do is deal with their light environment, because light controls our body clock. So like you just summarized, to see plenty of sunlight in the morning to set the body clock up for the day, then go outside a bit during the day to get the red light, and then in the evening start to make sure that you limit the blue light, which would be computers, screens, phones, and don't make sure your house isn't too bright. Don't decide to go to the mall and do a big shopping at 10 p.m. because it's super bright in there, and your brain will think it's midday or noon again. So I think that's just for people who are beginning to be interested in this. It's just quite simple things that they can do.
Simple thing.
Yeah.
It's simple things, and sometimes people, when I would bring it up, because my parents, when I would stay over, they are on their phone, and when I would ask them to, not ask, but let them know that it might affect their sleep, they're very resistant to it, because they told me that it it actually helps them sleep, because they're watching on their phone and they just don't want to listen. Would that be a part of addiction there, do you think?
Oh, absolutely. It's absolutely, phone addiction is massive, and the blue light is addictive. That's why it's always in casinos and stuff like that, because it just makes people more likely to buy alcohol and gamble more. So that people who are interested in manipulating us do know about the blue light hack. Yes, I think with parents, but with mine, my mum calls the phone the brain fry, and yet I've tried to ask them a million times to turn their Wi-Fi off at night because they live in the middle of nowhere with no MFs or anything, yet they wouldn't turn their Wi-Fi off because they were afraid it would never turn back on. So they basically could have lived, slept Wi-Fi free. And they, because they're nearly 80 now, it's really difficult to get them to turn the Wi-Fi off. But they understand that too much phone and technology and television is bad for you. But I think something like Wi-Fi is a bit too much beyond their understanding. And like with your parents, I think it's something I have heard this a lot of times, that people say, I need to have a television in the room because I can't sleep. And I do know that all that blue light is not going to be helping, but it's more sometimes a distraction to help people go to sleep. But I think also sometimes you can measure people's sleep with things like Aura rings and stuff like that. And they might tell you, oh, I'm having a great night's sleep. But when you look at the data, they woke up 6 times or they didn't have any deep sleep. So I think it's back to sometimes you've got to show people data, like with keto diets or stuff like that. A lot of clients I've had who say have had diabetes or pre-diabetes, you can show them the horrible blood results of triglycerides and blood sugar, and that will make them want to change. And then sometimes with people, if you show them this is how bad your sleep is, it's got measured on this device, and you might think that you're sleeping well, but you were tossing and turning and it was very bad, that then they might think, oh, actually, I will consider making changes, because humans love numbers and we always want to try and do better. If somebody shows us a number, we want to sort of try and get that number up or down.
I think it's a matter of an expert talking to my parents.
It might be, but also
Yeah.
it's to do with if one of them develops a problem, then all of a sudden people are interested, because a lot of basically all marketing is about you've got a problem and then you want to charge people money. Well, they've got a problem to solve it. So it's about solving problems. And it's the same with health and things and keto diets and this, that, and the other. Most of the time people won't make a change or buy into something until they have a problem. And then that thing is the solution. So it's to do with your parents will have to have a problem. Maybe they do have one that that they don't realize. And then you can start to introduce that maybe the phone is the problem.
Yeah. Sorry, mom, but she sends me videos late night and also early morning. So very, very early. So shout outs to mom. But there's a lot here, Dr. Sara Pugh. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. If there's anything that we missed, you have the floor right now to talk to our listeners.
Oh no, I think I've kind of conveyed what I wanted to convey. I mean, I is there anything in particular that they're really interested in, a topic or anything you really wanted to ask?
Yeah, you know what, there's a lot here, and I wanted to let our listeners know about the techniques that they can do to slowly become themselves again, right? Because people don't know that they're suffering because they've felt this way for so long, and they don't know what feeling good feels like anymore, right? Normal become common.
Exactly,
Common
and that
becoming
might
normal, sorry.
Exactly. That might be with your parents, that they have problems, but they think it's normal for them to have problems, and or they just say it's because they're older. Exactly. So you don't know what you don't know, and no matter what, there's always more. And you're completely right that sometimes people have to have an experience with something, and it's always to try something you've never tried before, even if you think it's a bit wooish, because I mean, people would think that about the ketogenic diet, because it won't hurt you to try the quantum biology out, because it's basically free. The sun's free. So that's what I would probably want to end with, that some of the best things in life, like the sun or grounding, sort of standing on the bare earth or walking on the beach or touching plants, there's free electrons and free energy there. So again, making use of the stuff that's free.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Sara Pugh, for coming on again and sharing that story and sharing your knowledge with our listeners. If you guys want to check it out, check out and connect with Dr. Sara, it will be linked down in the description box below, so you guys can check that out, guys. Thank you so much again, Dr. Sara, for coming on.
Oh, thank you, Lawrence. This was really good fun speaking to you.
Awesome. All right.
Subscribe to the Ketones and Coffee podcast today and never miss an episode.